Thanks for joining me again on TMI as we look at the issues concerning the ASUU strike. Nigeria at 62. The educational sector needs to be repositioned. And looking at that, we also spread our tentacles to the Edo-PDP crisis, the ruling of the Supreme Court last Friday, and what technicalities in that ruling, what will it have in terms of ending the tussle in Edo-PDP. Joining us on this very sensitive topics, starting from my extreme left, I have a legal practitioner in the person of Matthias Obayuwana. Thanks for joining me again, Matthias.
Thank you, Philip, and good morning, viewers.
And next to him is another articulate legal practitioner, and he is Sunday Daudu. Thanks for joining me, Sunday.
Thank you very much.
Although today is Tuesday. All right, well, let me start with you, Barrister Obayuwana. We look at issues concerning the ASUU strike, and just yesterday we had reports where the Minister of Labor and Employment, Dr. Christine Gige, was lambasting ASUU that it should stop misleading its members in continuing with the strike action by stating that ASUU has always brought up this issue that they've already applied for appeal, and that even the appeal has not been listed for hearing, that ASUU has no local standard to continue the strike action. But the question here is, was it right by the union to continue on the strike action even when there's an interlocutory injunction for stay on the strike, and even when their appeal has not been listed for hearing?
Well, if appeal has not been listed for hearing, and there's evidence that there's an application that was granted to stay execution or an injunction to restrain enforcement of the order of
by the NIC?
National Industrial Court, you know, that should operate as a stay.
But if there is no evidence to that effect?
If there's no evidence to that effect, an appeal by itself ordinarily does not amount to a stay, you know, unless you bring an application for a stay, because the judgment of the NIC, by our intent and purpose, remains valid until it is set aside by a superior court, no matter how you feel about it. But if a process has been put in place seeking to stop you, you know, from taking steps on that decision, you know, wisdom beholds that all parties should hold their sword, standing upon the authority of Ojuku and the military administration of Lagos State, which is Supreme Court decision, that where an application has been brought seeking to restrain a party from doing certain things, even when there's no positive order made yet, the knowledge or the pendency of that application is enough for all parties to hold their sword.
Okay.
You know, so having been aware that there's such an application in place seeking to stop, you know, to restrain them from applying, you know, enforcing that order, you know, I think all parties should respect that and follow that process through. In any case, why even trying to resolve these issues through the legal means? The issues are, they are agreement entered into between ASUU and the federal government. Rather than meet the terms of that agreement, parties are resorted to court, and court is compelling one party to go to court. I mean, to go and resume lectures without necessarily looking at the matter. These are issues which I believe have been raised at the level of the Court of Appeal. But I believe that the judiciary or the court is not really the forum where such an issue can be resolved. You know, they better sit down at the table and dialogue, and let parties honor the terms of the agreement. That has been the issue, you know, all the while. Okay. So running to court to try to, you know, just like face saving, and I don't think that is the best way out.
Okay, let's get your perspective, because does ASUU err if in the respect of the fact that there's a interlocutory injunction by the NIC for it to stop the strike, and even when its appeal or application has not been listed for hearing, it refused to stop the strike by not obeying the interlocutory injunction? Does ASUU err?
You see, the law is quite clear of that. The fulcrum of non-enforcement of the injunction is premise of grounds that once an appeal has been entered, it's immaterial whether it has been heard.
Oh.
Once you have entered an appeal number is given, it is immaterial whether the interlocutory injunction, the notice of stay of execution has been heard, or whether or not the appeal itself has been listed for hearing. You don't need to list them for hearing. Once it is entered, that there is an appeal.
Once there's an application in that respect.
Yes, once the appeal is entered, it is immaterial whether it's listed for hearing for the next 10 years. It's immaterial whether or not even the order for stay was even refused.
So the
once there is an appeal,
ignore the interlocutory.
No, once there is an appeal has been entered, it acts as a stay.
That's not true.
Once you have an appeal and the appeal has been entered, the other party cannot take further steps. So the federal government is saying they have not heard the appeal, and as such, ASUU should call off strike. You see,
but it will only make sense if
let me tell you,
if it has not been listed for hearing.
Let me tell you, sir.
Because your core legal practitioner is saying that that's not true.
No,
and I think he's going to hold you on that.
No, let me tell you, sir. There are issues. He has even admitted that once there is a pendency of an action,
all parties should hold their sword.
All parties to hold their sword. I'm deeply that once there is an appeal and the appeal has been entered, I'm saying that he acts as a stay. That is the dimension I'm taking it.
Okay, I'll come back.
So it means just hold on. It means that the parties now are aware that order or interlocutory order has been appealed, and that appeal again has been entered. The records of appeal themselves have been transmitted to the court of appeal. What do you do then? You must therefore answer that court of appeal, irrespective of whether or not they have heard the hearing. So, as it is now, both of them are on the same page. There is no person violating the order of court. Because we say the order of court must be obeyed, however it is obtained. But again, if you want to go into that how it is obtained, all is a different ballgame. Because if you look at interlocutory application, it's an equitable relief. Equitable is that no winner, no loser. So you cannot give an equitable relief where one party is celebrating. It therefore means it's no longer an equitable relief. Interlocutory application by their nature, equitable relief. You win, I win. You lose, I lose. Stay action, stay action. So you cannot tell one person, call off your strike. Another person, don't pay them their salary or remain mute on it. You see, that was where there was a technical misapprehension, imbalance. Because it's an equitable relief. Interlocutory application, you go to what it is. It's equitable. Now, if, for instance, the court has said, look, if they make a consequential order, ASUU call off your strike. Consequent upon telling you to call off your federal government, pay them their salaries.
Exactly.
Then the major issue, which is the order ordinarily to be referred from the industrial tribunal, now be given to the National Industrial Court, then you will say, okay, wait for the industrial court to now balance the equation, which is, there is a position of ASUU, there is a position of government, then the National Industrial Court gives a verdict. In the recess, you do not file interlocutory application in respect of the issues in question. And interlocutory application doesn't lie. You cannot institute interlocutory injunctions where there is already a negotiation. Government has made an offer. ASUU have made a counter offer. These are what would have been presented before the National Industrial Court, not interlocutory application.
Okay.
Interlocutory application ability does not lie.
Does not, okay.
In respect to the matter.
Okay.
Because government has said, I want to pay 25% or 23.5% and 35%. These people say pay off 50% and then about. This is the contention issue you are taking to court. It's what the court will look at. Again, the fundamental imperative of making an interlocutory injunction is that it must not be delayed. Because delay defeats equity. I told you initially that it's an equitable relief. Delay defeats equity. Interlocutory injunction in respect to labor matters can only be made at the time where ASUU give notice of strike. Then you file an action to arrest the strike by restraining them not to go on strike. So once they are on strike, interlocutory application doesn't lie.
Okay, I think we should allow you to have your say
over
your reactions at the beginning where he said that it doesn't matter.
Yes, although all the issues that converse, the issues which I believe borders on the appeal, which we cannot discuss here. You know, but to say that an appeal entered act as a stay, it is not for all purpose. It act as a stay of further proceedings at the level of the National Industrial Court, because they no longer have jurisdiction to look into that matter. Everything that has to do with that matter has now been moved to the Court of Appeal. So if any party is going to do anything concerning that matter, it will be at the level of the Court of Appeal and no longer at the level of the National Industrial Court. So if you see it as a stay to that extent that National Industrial Court no longer have jurisdiction over such matters, that does not preclude the parties from canvassing the issue or seeking to enforce the order at the Court of Appeal.
Okay.
Unless there is an indirect order from the Court of Appeal saying stay execution. If there is none at the Court of Appeal and the NIC had not made any such order before the appeal was entered, you know, so the NIC no longer have jurisdiction over that matter. Only the Court of Appeal has. And either of the party can apply to court to say, I want to enforce it. Another person can also ask to court to stay execution. You know, that is the position. You know, as far as the other issues are concerned, whether they could grant a statutory injunction for a matter that's already they already declared a dispute, you know, which parties are already looking into, is an issue that Mr. Falana has.
Okay, let's come to Barrister Sunday now. Barrister Sunday, the labor law actually says when you don't go to work, you're not entitled to pay. I think that's the stance of the Labour Minister, Chris Gige. But do you think it's the way out for the federal government? Don't you think it's just a way to truncate the effort of ASUU to get them back to work?
Well, you know, I have, in my previous engagement in respect to that, the principles of no work, no pay, I have stated succinctly that it doesn't apply. The period of protest that enforce an agreement already raised, you do not enforce the principles of no work, no pay. The court is succinct on it. I've mentioned the case of Union Banks of Nigeria against Mrs. Edet. The court said that where a party fails to honor a collective agreement, the only way of enforcing it is by strike, which is protest strike, not a strike situation. You are protesting, giving opportunity for the other person to
demanding for your
yes.
rights.
So at that point, you cannot, of course, enforce it.
No work,
no work, no pay. And as I said,
so there's lacuna in the place of the federal government.
The federal government, yes, they apprehend or misinterpreted the law.
Okay.
And at the point ASUU went on strike, as I said, is on 1st of August. That is when they went on strike. That time also gave government opportunity of 90 days to apprehend it by sending the matter to NIC, National Industrial Arbitration Tribunal, to give an award, which we may know to both parties. If they fail to honor it, you now take that award to the National Industrial Court for pronouncement. If those periods have exhausted, National Industrial Court have given it verdict, then ASUU still did not obey. It's at that point you enforce no work, no pay.
Okay.
It means that all the amicable settlement, what we call eternal remedy, eternal mechanism,
prove abortive.
Yes, have ended fruitlessly. Okay. At that point, you now know that we cannot compromise except we enforce the no work, no pay. So the government didn't wait for the processes to be exhausted before they just said no work, no pay. No work, no pay in what respect. So they didn't apply the law.
So it doesn't have a legal standing.
No. There's no legal standing for that. You cannot enforce, as I said initially in my language, I said you cannot benefit from your own.
In your language.
You cannot you cannot benefit from your own wrong. You cannot in one place appropriate, in another place you are reprobating.
Okay.
You say, oh, we have agreed, we signed. Another time you say, I'm not going to pay them, but let them start work. They fail in their own bid. The other people call off their strike, which is 2020. You refuse to enforce your own part of it or play your own part from January 1st, 2021 till date. So you are not telling the same people, even if I don't enforce my own, you must remain at work. Who does that? So that is where they make a mistake. It was not a normal trade dispute wherein they went on strike, then you enforce no work. They are saying, implement this agreement. You have agreed. You have told us to call off strike. We have called off our strike. We give you one more to enforce or to implement the agreement. Then you are still talking about no work, no pay. So you cannot, the principles of no work, no pay does not hold sway. Especially, of course, that the government has not even now gone to court without following the procedures. Okay. If the government has gone to court, they follow the procedure, the National Industrial Court gives a final judgment, and you still disobey, At that point, the government has no other option than to enforce the principles of no work, no pay, because all the internal mechanisms have been exhausted. What is left?
Okay. I think we are stretching this.
We are actually stretching it. Yes, and I'm very sure, Barrister Matthias, you want to react to that?
No, I agree with him because it is slavish. It's against the fundamental rights, of the workers, not to be subjected to any sense of forced labor or servitude or slavery. And I'm sure the ILO, International Labour Organization, also have provisions, that stops that. You refuse to make the condition of service better for your workers, to create the enabling environment to carry out their work, and you have agreed with them in collective agreement that this is what you need to do, and you refuse to do that. They have a right to say, look, we can't continue in this slavish condition to continue to work. So to insist that if you don't go back to work, in fact, we won't even pay you. It's like you are not going to get them into forced labor. So you are going to subject them to start work under a slavish condition, which is against the fundamental human rights. So they are entitled, a laborer is entitled to his wages. They have worked, and they have asked you to better the condition for them, to enable them to work. Don't let them work under hard and terrible conditions.
And they have given you terms and conditions
that appear cruel, inhuman, and degrading. So all of this will amount to a violation of the fundamental human rights. So if you juxtapose that position, the labor law that I've enacted that says no work, no pay, if you juxtapose it with the constitutional provision that goes against cruel, inhuman, degrading treatment given to any individual, and then getting anybody to forced and slavish condition of work, you find that the condition will hold sway by virtue of section 113 of the Constitution, that if there's any law that runs counter the provision of the Constitution, that law to the essence of its consistency will be declared null and void.
Thank you
so I agree with him that you cannot insist that you will not pay where you created that condition for them, as terrible as it is, and you are getting them to get into forced labor under a cruel and inhuman degrading condition.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Let me just drop breath. Okay. Let me draw breath from what he has said.
Okay.
You see, you don't read any of the laws in isolation. If you look at section 34 of the 1999 Constitution, you look at section 9 of the Labour Act. Now look at it, section 18 of the Trade Dispute Act. What you find there for instance, let's take it from section 9 of the Labour Act, is that no worker will be victimized on the basis of him participating in any of his union's activities, including strike.
Yes.
Now, if you, for instance, stop somebody's salary on ground of strike, have you not victimized him? That's the highest victimization. And labor law says you cannot victimize somebody because he's on strike for protesting his right, inuring to him by virtue of the collective agreement.
So ASUU all this while has been in the right?
Yes. So if you are victimizing him, if you deprive me of my salary, you have victimized me to the highest order.
Okay, thank you. Let's see how that goes, because even the leadership of the House of Reps will be meeting with the President as reports have it today. And side by side, we're also having the hearing on the appeal filed by ASUU today. Let's see how that will bring sense out of all of this in order to end the strike, which has been lingering over 7 months. But quickly, let's look at the ruling of the Supreme Court last week Friday on Edo PDP crisis. A suit filed by the Dan Obi-led faction asking the court to authenticate its faction and that of the governor's faction to invalidate. And all of this caused a lot of ripples when the court ruled dismissing the suit filed by Dan Obi's faction and saying that the party issues remains party issues and that the courts have no jurisdiction in that regard. Now the question is, does this end the tussle of the PDP crisis in Edo State, or is it entering into another fresh tussle, Barrister Sunday?
Well, I will take it from the doctrine of deeply democracy within a party. If that is the premise, then there is need not be a record or factionalization in a party system, where you now have what you call the Anobi faction or Baseki's faction. That will not deepen eternal democracy within a political party. Taking it from there, the court held that it will not meddle into a party affair. That is the party who determines its candidate. And that should not be left to court to determine for a party, these are your candidates, these are not your candidates. And the party should go back to the drawing board, resolve their matter, adhere to the provisions of their own constitutional guidelines for the conduct of primaries, for the emergence of candidates for the elections. So promise on that, therefore, I think for me, it is no time to still be calling a fractional member, say this is Obi fraction. Okay. The leadership of the party should wade into the matter now and sit down.
And harmonize.
And harmonize the candidates. Because if Obi has produced, Basakisa has produced, there should be no hegemony. What should be there now is a compromise. If they must deepen democracy within their party.
Okay, I'll come back to you. But again, let's not forget another ruling by a federal high court in Benin City. Yes. You know, that said that INEC should recognize the governor's faction. But well, he said at this point we shouldn't be making mention of factionalization. But how do you make up that judgment by the federal high court and the one that we just saw last week Friday?
You see, the Supreme Court has put to rest. It's just a reenactment or reaffirmation or reiteration of existing position of the law that says that the courts should not intermeddle into internal affairs of political parties. If that is the case, the suit that was brought was like, oh, let the court determine who will be delegates that will go and contest, that will go and vote in the primaries of our, and to elect candidates for us. So is it this faction or the other faction? That is the issue they canvass. Court allow my faction and don't allow the other person's faction. Because look, it is not our business.
Based on the suit brought.
Yes, to be looking into all these issues. Go back home and look at this matter. And in going back home, they are not going to start afresh now because they have done what they need to do. The Federal High Court in Benin, what the candidates now did, because the suit that was brought was really not a pre-election matter by so strictly sensible, because the candidates, the aspirants have not been brought forward. It was just a party affair at that time. Oh, delegates who elect candidate for the election. So there are various aspirants that will be thrown up. Delegate will not say, okay, among these aspirants, the delegate will not say, among these aspirants, we're going to pick one or two as our candidate. That was strictly internal affairs. The real pre-election is the election of these delegates. It's the real pre-election. And now, delegates have emerged by virtue of, Canada has emerged by virtue of delegates who brought them to be, whether by this fashion or by the other fashion. The Federal High Court in Benin was predicated upon a suit brought by candidates that emerged from the primaries that was conducted by some of those delegates. The Obaseki group.
Yes.
That was those candidates that went to court. And they went to court and they asked a simple question. Yes, it is the party that should conduct the primaries for that will bring about election of candidates.
Candidates for the
And that the party that must do that work, the organ is the National Working Committee. So the question I put before the Federal High Court was that between the Obaseki group and the Obi group, which of these primaries was conducted by the National Working Committee? And the Obaseki group will say, look, our own primary was conducted by the National Working Committee, and candidates that emerge are the candidates of the party. We are dealing with a political party or a body corporate. You are dealing with the national organ. The state organ takes directive for national organ. So the national body with the National Working Committee were those that conducted the primaries and that brought about those candidates. So they were saying, for that reason, we are the genuine candidates of the party.
Although I refuse to recognize
that. And not that brought by the Obi group. Now, this matter went all the way and judgment was delivered. Why this was going on, just like the initial one that went to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court now put a final note on it. This one has already made, because while the Obi group has also gone to court, their matter is also pending as we speak at another Federal High Court.
Okay, based on this.
On the same scenario, where they got an interim order, which the interim order directing the INEC to publish their own list of candidates.
Yes, of course.
And so when Obi groups submitted their list of candidates Abateki group also submitted that to INEC. INEC said they were acting on court order, or that interim order of court that was brought in by the Obi group. That's why they published those names. That matter is still ongoing. Judgment has not been delivered. But here is a final judgment of court, or the Federal High Court.
A final judgment.
A final judgment, where the Federal High Court has heard now that the National Working Committee conducted the primaries that brought about this candidate. And so by so speaking, these are the real candidates of the PDP.
So when you say final judgment, it means that there should be there won't be further litigations. Is that what you're saying?
As at that level.
Yeah, because
if you are not happy, if anybody is not happy, you can always appeal to a higher court, to the Court of Appeal, from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. As far as the Federal High Court is concerned, the dispute that was thrown up, where the Obi group and the Obaseki group came with their lawyers represented, the court has given a final verdict. And all parties are bound by that decision. If you are not happy, you may appeal against it, or you may bring an application for stay of execution of that order. I'm not aware that any has been brought. And the directive that will be given by the court, positive order of court, to INEC, publish the names of these persons who were victorious in this suit. They are the candidates that were thrown up. They are the candidates that were made from the appointment that was conducted by the National Working Committee of the PDP.
Okay, by that judgment, where now lies the fate of the Edo PDP candidates under the Obi's faction?
Well, it's unfortunate because the court heard that the primary that was conducted by them were not that done by the National Working Committee. Okay. So I'm afraid that INEC may be compared by virtue of that decision of the Federal High Court Benin to pull down the names published for the Obi, for the Obi group and replace it with that of the governors group because they said they were acting on court order. INEC is an independent umpire. They should not be taking side in any way. If they publish the first list because the court ordered them to do so, where both parties submitted a list to them, court ordered them to publish one. And then a final decision of court has said, look, publish this other one, pull the other one down. They don't have any option. Okay, let to obey the order unless and until maybe this matter runs its way through again to the Supreme Court. And when the Supreme Court finally gives a final verdict on the matter, then that puts an end to every disputation. But as of the moment, the judgment on board, the positive order on board is that INEC should publish the names of the Obaseki group.
I think so the idea have a different perception.
Because the idea of
from his facial
body language, the idea of the harmonization, I think they have gone past that stage. Because if you want to harmonize now, you'll be offending the law. The question is, the person you are harmonizing with, you are going to ask people to drop another person to come up, and the court has heard that their primaries were not conducted by the National Working Committee. So they like the harmonization. So some party may have just have to lick their wounds, and then and the other person go for the election, and they can find a way. The harmonization can be backdoor. They can find a way to fine if you get in there. These are the kind of position you will go.
Are you saying the governors
contesting is concerned? The governors group, so to speak, is the candidate for the PDP. Edo, as far as the federal High Court decision judgment is concerned at the moment.
Okay. Let's get to Barrister Sunday. I'm sure you want to react to this, but I have a question for you though.
You see, we must balance the two judgments.
Okay.
No, there's no judgment. That was it. Interim ruling and a judgment.
Hold on.
He has the floor. He has the floor. Go ahead.
Once there is a ruling, it's an order of court that must be obeyed. Or still it is set aside.
It has lasted 7 days now. Interim.
Barrister Matthias, let him have the floor. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
If an order is given, interim order, and the court renewed it until it is vacated. So if the order subsists, it's immaterial whether it was initially given for 7 days. Actually, it's initially given for 7 days, but it can be renewed over and over, pending the hearing and determination of the substantive suit. The court has the discretion to so, of course, renewed that. Until it is now finally set aside, then you can now decide that that interim order has been set aside, the judgment will sway.
Okay.
But as it stays now, that interim order subsists, it has not been vacated, as to my knowledge. A judgment of court again has been given on respect to the same matter. INEC are playing safe. We cannot now, on our own, without the order, earlier order given to us, compelling us to, having not been vacated, we cannot now take the judgment to now meet the current position of the law. I think this is the both courts are courts of coordinate jurisdiction. Whenever a judgment is given, is of equal strength. So therefore, the INEC cannot. But if it goes to Court of Appeal, Court of Appeal gives a judgment in respect to this matter in favor of one party, then of course the party can, that order cannot be given back to INEC and say, flowing from the Court of Appeal decision.
Okay.
You can now publish party A or B. Now, if you are giving the final judgment from what court? From the same Federal High Court to INEC, and there is no provision or any part of the ruling that says the earlier order made compelling you to publish the names of the other group has been vacated. Consequently, recognize these parties. If there is nothing like
honestly,
that, my lord, you cannot.
I'm the presiding judge now. I'm the presiding judge.
Position, except in that judgment.
Okay.
There is a ruling or part of the ruling or a paragraph which says the earlier order made by Court A has been vacated. Consequently, the candidates emanating from this party hold sway.
Now that has not happened.
But let me also come in, so
okay,
that we cannot mislead the people. The question is first, if we are saying National Working Committee of the party and State Working Committee of the party, the question is that where is Obi? Is Obi not a national member of the party? Is he not a member? Is he not the vice chairman South?
So
he's the principal member.
It's very pivotal when it comes to the working committee. Is that what you are saying?
The committee
set up. A committee
is
was
a
set
member
up.
of the National Working Committee of PDP.
So by that, are you saying that
that's
giving some coloration
Exactly.
of the National Working Committee?
Allow me to say, sir.
A committee was set up by them.
When you're talking about National Working Committee, that is why they have members representing each zone. Danobi is representing the South.
So he alone constituted the National Working Committee.
He's a member of the South. The question we must ask is that whether or not the primaries conducted by Dan Obi fashion emanates, whether he has the mandate from the National Working Committee or the chairman, whatever you call it, the body of the National Working Committee to conduct it. Then you now talk about the state chairman of the party in Edo State, which led the conduct of the other faction. Whether or not, of course, that emanates from the national. It is only when you put these cards together that you can now
that
say,
has been done already, and the Federal Court has given a judgment. You cannot be falsification of the judgment.
Let Barrister Sunday.
Yes.
Some of
go ahead. Determine whether or not it flows from there. Now, if you look at the judgment of the Federal High Court, which now says that it is the Obaseki faction that conducted the primaries, which was in itself not monitored by INEC. These are all requirements. The issue of whether or not, of course, INEC...
But had full presence of the National Working Committee.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yes, it does. The question is that there is a provision that says the primary elections of any political party...
It was supervised by INEC.
Yes, should be monitored by INEC. The question now, if you want to draft that further, is
it mandatory? Is it mandatory?
It's mandatory. It is not made. Shall monitor. That is what the provision says. It didn't say may monitor. They say the primaries of any political party shall be monitored by INEC. So if you make it compulsory and you didn't give them notice to pay, it means there is a lacuna. So to me, the best bet for the party.
But there's already a court ruling by the Federal High Court that it should recognize.
Yes, I'm saying
that it should recognize
that. There are two positions.
So being that as it is that INEC should recognize that group, that gives some coloration of credibility.
Exactly.
No, hold on, sir. I'm vacating the other order by mere judgment of another party court. Of the same coordinate. That's what I'm saying. The courts are of coordinate jurisdiction. Whatever they give, they are of equal strength, equal enforceability, irrespective of the nature. If there is an order of court, whatever the order is, that's why we're saying that even though the interlocutory injunction was made by Kuda, it must be obeyed. It's immaterial whether or not it is. You must obey it. But once it is vacated, if there was a reference to that in their judgment, that earlier order compelling INEC to publish the names of these has been vacated, then of course, let me also tell you, sir. Let me also tell you, sir.
Well, it's quite the judgment. This is the point where legal practitioners.
I want to tell you quickly. The judgment, sir.
Because we are
misconstrued. No, the correct judgment, sir. The correct judgment of the Federal High Court.
A judgment is.
Did it say with due respect?
Final decision.
Did it not say that INEC should publish the list of the candidates emanating from that group? It didn't say so. What the court says, I'm emphatic on it, is that it is that group that conducted elections in concert with the national. That is what the court says.
He didn't go further.
He didn't go further.
That's the governor's faction.
Excuse me, sir. The judgment, I have read it.
Okay.
It didn't now say, there was or any of the other.
It didn't say that INEC should recognize.
No, that now say INEC should publish the names emanating from there. The judgment didn't say so.
Okay.
So they can now go to court.
Barrister Sunday, let's come to Barrister Matias. I know you want to respond to that, but now in his submission, he said that INEC didn't supervise the faction of the governor. And now the court is saying INEC should recognize the governor's faction. How do we now put this together?
Well, according to him, he said that.
What we are saying now, what we are saying now,
the court did not say
this is like trying after, split mate, right? A court of jurisdiction, court of record, are giving a judgment. You can't be sitting down here pontificating over that judgment. Oh, it ought to have been this, ought to have been that. All the argument you would have to canvass, ought to have been canvassed at the federal record. And I believe the lawyers for the other side had canvassed this argument. And the court saw reason to say, look, no. These are the candidates for the election. These are the candidates thrown up for PDP Edo and no other. If the court has given that decision, and INEC, I believe, was made a party in that proceedings.
Okay.
INEC is bound to obey that order. He has raised the issue of interim order. Interim order, which he agreed has lapsed for 7 days. Interim order is even weaker than telecotory order. Interim order usually is granted pending termination of a motion or notice for telecotory. Interlocutory order lasts till the matter in court is determined.
Okay.
But this is a final decision. Nothing to be determined. It can be done. The court has said, I will look at all the issues thrown up, and I believe some of this argument of his were thrown up there. These are the candidates for the party.
And the other faction can't appeal this order?
They could do so.
Okay.
So if it's going to appeal on that, the other side can go and appeal as of the moment. When there is no appeal, there is no appeal for stay, INEC has no option to say, well, I have an order, interim order from one other court. Until that order is set aside, I will not obey this order. INEC cannot elect.
Being of coordinate.
Yes, they are courts of coordinate jurisdiction.
Oh, jurisdiction, okay.
Yes, but the weight.
Another challenge?
No, it's not a challenge. The way to be attached is that these are not two judgments. These are not two judgments. One is an order pending the final resolution of the issue brought before the court, and the other is the resolution of the issues brought before the court, where all parties had their say. So will you not take an interim order that was made to preserve the rest pending when the issues are decided? You will not throw that one up and above a judgment that has said all the issues have finally been resolved, and INEC is a party. If they have resolved the issue, INEC is a party. INEC should go and obey that order. INEC cannot elect each order to follow. If you look at the primacy of the order, the judgment is higher.
They are duty bound.
Yes, and more efficacious than that of the interim order of court. I'm not about the PDP. Don't am I a counsel to any of them? But looking at the decision of court, you cannot downplay a judgment of the court and be uplifting an interim order.
Okay, Barrister Sunday.
PDP, so you.
They are.
So now I'm going to say you're not a member of PDP.
You know,
groups are PDP.
That is the position of the law.
It's so sad
that judgment of court.
It's so sad that we are having this narrative.
The issue of
you made mention of the fact that there cannot be harmonization at this level.
No. I don't believe that. But let me. You see, the beautiful argument my brother is canvassing would have been so it would hold sway if it was the same judge.
It need not be the same judge.
Excuse me, sir.
It need not be the same judge. It's an interim order.
Excuse me, sir. If it was the same judge that gave that interim order, once he gives a final order, the interim order itself is greater than arbitrary. But this is not the issue here. the issue here that the question we must ask ourselves as lawyer when you go to court, the question we must ask, has that interim order been vacated? Because if it is made before an interlocutory injunction, the interlocutory injunction has it been taken? If the interlocutory injunction has not been taken, it means the order subsists until the interlocutory injunction is taken. So if you have not vacated,
if I may ask you, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
If I may ask you a question?
Although we are not in the
I'm asking a simple question.
Yes.
Now you have an order, you have an interim order, you are an independent umpire.
Yes.
You said I don't have any stake in this stuff.
Yes.
If when you direct me to do a thing, I will do.
Yes.
And somebody has brought an interim order.
Yes.
Say this order just to preserve the rest or the issues before me are decided.
Yes.
Another brought a judgment that had decided the issues before the court, thrown up by all the parties.
Yes.
And I said, look, the judgment said these are the two candidates too.
Yes.
And then since you are not supposed to choose, you are not supposed to bias against any party. Will you hold on to an interim order and despise a final decision of the court? Will you do so?
Now,
otherwise, if you are
well, you've asked a question. Let him respond. Let him respond.
Yes, interesting. You know why we must educate the public. You know why we must educate the public.
Go ahead,
we go in
please.
duty.
Yeah, of course.
If what he's saying is anything to go by, that the all matters are all in the same form, it means that there is already duplicity of action. If there's a duplicity of action, the last one becomes.
And does it interest you to know that
Mr. Matthias, the last one let him respond. Let him respond. Go ahead. Mr. Sunday.
Let me say it.
Go ahead.
You see, if all these actions are the same, because that is why we are not the one representing the parties.
And both of you are not even members
we are not members of the party. Now what I'm saying is that
groups.
Yes, I agree now.
If
the last one will be
excuse me,
an abuse of corporate
Barrister Matthias, let him have the floor.
The matters are of the same form. That is, all facts, issue raised are the same.
Yes.
The court, in reference to, if they are the first in time, they would have raised it. There is a duplicity. If they are raised the issue that is a duplicity, and as such, the court order that the judgment is taking, would have make reference to that one to say that the action instituted by the Obi-led group was bad for multiplicity of action on the same subject matter, and it would have rendered it obligatory. If that was not canvassed, and the court didn't make pronouncement on it, as I speak, I cannot be too clear that the Obi faction were the first to go to court, or the
governor's
faction go to court. But if I must leverage on the orders from the Danobi faction came first, because I don't have the suit numbers now, came first.
The suit was filed
so by a prima facie assessment, you can conclude, maybe rebuttable, that the Obi faction went to court first.
Okay, but don't you think if all of this goes on, don't you think that could bring about?
That was why I said my position.
Not even having
that's my position. I said at this point,
is it not possible?
It's not possible.
At this point,
the party will have candidate as it stands.
Because litigations are continuing.
Yes, it will surely continue.
So that will bring.
It's another round of litigation. Yes, it's not be a setback. Another round of litigation that will run through to the Supreme Court on this. Now let me tell you why it will not affect the candidate. It will not affect the party. The party, they have a candidate. Their names are published. The law is that it is the political party that contests and wins election. Provided any person thrown up by the court to say that he will be the person that will enjoy the benefit of the victory of the party, that person must have taken part in the primaries, in all the processes of the election. Now, this party said primaries have been conducted by them. The other said they also conducted primaries. This one said it was the National Working Committee that did their own. The other one was done by not by National Working Committee. These are the issues thrown up. The Federal Court Benin said,
you had a member of the National Working Committee.
Exactly. Yes. The other one said he has a member. Yes. The fact that you have a member does not constitute the committee. A committee was set up. So if that is the case, and the prosecuting group said the court has heard that the prosecuting group was the authentic one that the committee conducted. So it therefore means that the party has a candidate in the election. You may have published certain names now. Oh, these are the names published for the party. At the end of the day, when the litigation goes through to the Supreme Court, because where we hereby hold that these are the parties that have won the election, and as far as they participated in the primaries of the political party, they will be the one who will be giving certificate of return. So it will not affect either the party. Okay. My position here that either the party before the court is that the PDP should come together.
Okay.
And let them do whatever they want to do their campaign and whatever.
Okay.
The legal process. I don't think it's possible.
It's not possible.
No, because you cannot now go and be submitting a list. A list has been submitted to INEC already. You cannot withdraw that list unless the party, maybe let me give it that window of possibility. Unless either of the party agrees to withdraw.
Okay, let's get to Barrister Sunday. Barrister Sunday, well, you actually said you are not actually representing any of the faction, but your submission here shows that the both of you look like counsel to the both parties. But my question,
we have been following very closely.
Now the question now is, election is around the corner, and this is going to affect the PDP. Don't you think if they cannot harmonize at this point, they might lose out in the forthcoming election?
You see, I have actually argued that there is no, they can harmonize.
Oh,
this is why I said so. It's possible. Because if we a judgment of court, when the court has given a judgment, the parties can harmonize.
Within this short time?
Yes. Even if a court has given a judgment.
The electoral rules.
They can harmonize. No, that's what I'm saying. Now, you see the issue is that there is no question as to whether or not the party has conducted primaries. Now, that is not in question. The question is
when we say harmonize, sorry to cut in, when we say harmonize, we're looking at positions.
Yes.
Don't forget.
You're asking some person to step down.
You say that some person should step down.
If you look
at looking at positions.
Excuse me, sir.
We're looking at litigations that have gone far in the law court.
Yeah. You see, if you look at our synopsis is deeply internal democracy within the party. That is the synopsis of our argument. How do you deepen internal democracy? It's by concession. It's by compromise. That's how you deepen internal democracy.
By sacrifice.
Yes, by sacrifice. That's how you deepen internal democracy.
So do you have hope that such sacrifice will
Of course, it's possible.
What
I'm saying is that, you see, litigation more often than not doesn't resolve issues. If you litigate and the other person wins, you said the other person should look his wounds prior to election and you want to win election. A party that wants to win election.
So are you saying it's going to be a win-win for the both parties?
It should be a win-win for both of them. Okay. So I cannot lose. For instance, now you can't take away the governor in Edo State, for instance.
Absolutely.
And say that no big faction has won, Obaseki should go and sit down. You can't say so.
It should be a win-win.
You cannot also say that Obaseki has won, Obi should go and sit down. That is not correct. That cannot bring harmony to the party.
But there there are no traces. There are no traces that such
that is why I'm saying
in a way that they will not harmonize.
If you look at
how do you do that?
Yes, if you look at the party, you see some of us already have problems with the party. I have problem with the party because of the manner in which they are pursuing their issues. ASUU is the chairman of the party. I'm not sure.
The national chairman.
Yes, the national chairman. Now, Atiku Abubakar is the
presidential candidate of the party.
And you have a state controlled by the PDP who are in a mess in crisis. You can't come down and try and ensure that whatever it is resolved. And you want to govern the country.
That shows there's crisis.
So it is crisis. To me, I do not believe that the crisis should hold sway prior to elections. If they want to really do a business of governance.
At the national level, they are also preoccupied.
Yes, so to me,
by a lot of issues.
The Wike is holding them to ransom.
The Wike saga is already stretching.
Yes, to me, they need to resolve this issue.
All right.
They need, yes, it is a must. If we don't resolve it, if it goes on and on like this, because there are several cases, another case will go up. They will continue to labor like this.
Why I find it difficult to align, because all the while I'm talking about harmonization.
Yes.
If you remember when I did the so-called delegate, at the level of before the delegate election that caused this situation, in terms of the leadership of the various wards, when deputy governor put the position that where they just came in from another political party, and then they are not be given their own people any stability to allow them to give some portfolio and all of that. So they call for harmonization at the time. The deputy governor was calling for harmonization. Let us harmonize. You bring some, let me bring some. some of them went to court. The Obi faction went to court, and the court held that the tenure of the executive of the various wards and local government of the party cannot be truncated. They will serve their full tenure. When court gave that judgment, that put paid to the ammunition issue. Here, the Federal Court Benin has said, these are the people who are the candidates of the party. They are giving a judgment. You are not saying that they should throw that to the wind.
One has to be realistic.
I'll come to the table to come and harmonize. So that's why I find it difficult.
Okay.
If they're able to do so, to be with great sacrifice.
Okay,
for any candidate to say, okay, at this point, okay, fine, I will withdraw for my race. Because the only way to harmonize now is for a candidate to withdraw. Okay. Right to INEC and withdraw
their candidacy.
Yes, and then we are substituting with so. The party is substituting with so. If they agree to withdraw their candidacy, another person come and substitute, well and good. But politics being a game of a permanent interest, no permanent friends, no permanent enemies. I wonder whether those interested who are putting so much money, have been pushing and driving,
so much time,
and time and resources, and made as candidate at this point in time, it's okay. Where I will be the sacrificial lamb. Okay. Let me now withdraw. If it happens, that would be very great.
As we bring this discussion to a close, in 1 minute, Sunday Daudu, what do you see as lessons learned by this experience in PDP crisis, Edo PDP, that other parties should hold sway to in terms of deepening internal democracy in their parties? What's the lessons learned?
Well, the fundamental lesson there is that if we must deepen internal democracy within a party, there is no basis for rancor, or resolve rancor between a party. Because the danger inherent in it is that the party may lose out. If you continue to pursue this, it may lose out. Because they will continue, if you go finish, they go and institute another action. When another action will be brought up, still on this issue. So they will continue to litigate this, and then we say I can't recognize them, we say another will come. So
and loyalty is also key.
Yeah, so the best bet
is also key
to
the leader of the party.
Yes, the best bet
for me. The fact.
The best bet for
the governor of the state is the leader of the party.
Yes, the best bet for me.
Loyalty is key.
Yeah, the best bet for me is for both parties, both sides of the divide now, to come to a round-table discussion and resolve this matter. If they must be serious, because you see, the people watch. If a party can't harmonize their interests, you are telling them to go and govern a country. If a party, just issue within the party, if they can't resolve it, you are not trusting the governance of a country that is already bedeviled with issues to come and resolve. Who does that now? If a party has a problem in his home, he can't resolve it. He is now telling you outside, I can resolve your problem. I have not resolved my own. If they must make headway, they must resolve this issue before they can even come to the public. And if you come to me and campaign that I want to better your laws, I will ask you a question. You have a problem in your home, you have not settled it. You are coming to me. What are you campaigning? What's the basis? You must have a background to your campaign. So if you don't have a background, you can't come to the public and tell them that if you vote for me, I want to govern you very well. You can't govern.
Okay, thank you. It's a challenge that we are having all of this from 1960 to date. We still can't fathom the aspect of having ideology in political parties and even coming up with manifestos.
Yes.
Well, your beat on that. Because yes, we are wrapping up.
Exactly.
So
that's exactly where the problem lies. There's no clear-cut manifesto. Many of them are trying to put forward their manifesto, those who are contesting the election, the political parties. As it stands today, the Nigerian masses, we have even lost faith in all of these existing political parties.
Wow.
That's why you have a third force now, which is called the obedient movement. So people are coming for to say, look, we don't even want either of these two. We want something neutral. Not to say that even the Labour Party now is not a conglomerate of some members of the APC and the PDP. Some of them are still coming to come and push interest. But we are looking at we are looking at a new energy, in the person of a Peter Obi. Everybody looking around that kind of individual where whatever he has said that he would do, he appears to have the interest of the people at heart. So in resolving this internal crisis, there's no home that don't have crisis. Every home do have crisis. But the question is, how best do you resolve it? And I think, in Benin, as they say, Echo Wagwa, there's nothing that you really cannot accommodate. If you are not able to accommodate one another, there's really nothing much you can achieve. They failed to have, they made this error from the very beginning, the case of winner takes all, where the deputy governor started to press. See, look, we just came in, yes, let's harmonize, let's share. You take some, I take some. So people say, no, they cannot share. They have been pushing now. Oh, it is not to say, okay, let's come and share. What you couldn't share then, isn't that you cannot share? So people should change their mentality and their attitude. If you really have the interest of people at heart, come back to the round table and find a way of harmonizing, solving your problem. Earlier, not before it's not into a mighty crisis that it is now.
But will you blame them entirely when they had an executive that its tenure has got elapsed? When he talks about
that means
that you suspend that.
When they were pushing, so there is nothing that cannot be done. Even as we speak, I say that it will cost a higher sacrifice for anyone to say, well, I forfeit my candidature.
Okay.
Let some other person comes in.
Okay.
And there are some persons who can still do that. They could have done that then.
Yes.
But some persons made it difficult and impossible for it to be done by going to court and getting the judgment. Which say that when their tenure must pan out, nobody can truncate it by harmonization, and that puts pay to it. So as in government, in politics, is a game of numbers and interest and intrigues. So the intrigues started playing out. Okay, I own the delegate. You say you own the ward executive. Okay, for whatever imagination, I own the delegate. I have some delegate list. You see, you have some delegate list. Okay, election conducted by the NWC. You almost talking about the NWC. The intrigues started playing up. Go to the Supreme Court and it's back. Another one has started again now. Go to the Supreme Court and to come back. So at the end of the day, by the time they start fighting over this issue, another person will go and collect the position that they are fighting for.
And lawyers are feeding fat.
Definitely, you have to pay lawyers that way they work. We have to pay.
Big thanks for taking our time to be part of this. Matthias Obayiwana and of course Daudu Sunday. I understand that you people have cases in court as we speak, and you took it upon yourself to honor this invite. Kudos to you guys, and we urge you to have a beautiful day ahead of you.
Thank you
very much.
Well, this is what you can take on the discussion. Do well to join us same time on this, but it's still TMI to stay.